The discussion of the all-time greatest in the sport of boxing is a hotly discussed topic, but ultimately it is subjective. Many people will have their own say on their top 10s, but many of the same boxers will appear in most people's lists. However, DAZN has gone about things a little differently. Today, we're discussing DAZN's recent top 10 boxers of the last 30 years list. Don't go anywhere. Let's get straight into it then. What's happening? As we mentioned, people will debate forever as to who their favorite boxers are and why, but generally most will agree on the same 7 or 8 names when discussing all-time greatest lists. Recently, global sports entertainment platform DAZN released their own list of best boxers of the past 30 years, with a few extremely conspicuous absences. It is generally considered that the two Tysons, Mike and Fury, are two of the greatest heavyweights of all time, not just the past 30 years, so their absence off of DAZN's list did not go unnoticed. While most of the boxers on their list had a legitimate argument for being there were a couple of odd choices. Of course, nobody is doubting the skills of Pernell Whitaker, but having him in at number 5 ahead of boxers like Canelo and Lennox Lewis and at the expense of Tyson and Fury doesn't make much sense. Fury is undefeated over his entire career, and Whitaker won none of his last 4 fights. There have been some who claim his recent tragic death after being hit by a car has propelled him onto the list. There is also a question surrounding Oscar De La Hoya and, more notably, Felix Trinidad. Undoubtedly fantastic boxers in their eras. We're not sure they belong on the best boxers of the last 30 years list. I mean, De La Hoya lost 6 times and Trinidad ended his career with 3 defeats. What do you make of their list? Who else did they have on their list then? Stay tuned to find out. Well, no one will disagree with the fact that Mexican great Saul Canelo Alvarez is on the list, although some may suggest that he could be included a little higher up. There will be no arguments with number 9 on their list either, with the inclusion of legendary heavyweight Evander Holyfield. Lennox Lewis was number 8 before things got a little questionable with the inclusion of Trinidad at 7 and De La Hoya at 6, not to mention Pernell Whitaker being included at number 5. However, there can be little argument with the top 4 fighters on the list, although people might claim they could be a little further down to make way for Mike Tyson and Tyson Fury. DAZN had middleweight legend Bernard Hopkins at number 4, with 4-weight division champion Roy Jones Jr. at number 3. The top 2 spots were shared by Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Manny Pacquiao, respectively, even though the former beat the latter back in 2015 and went through his entire career unbeaten. Pacquiao, undoubtedly one of the all-time greats and definitely deserving of a spot on anyone's top 10 list, probably shouldn't be at number 1, given how the latter years of his career played out, finishing with 8 career losses. Of course, defeats don't automatically mean you are a bad fighter, but there are other fighters out there over the past 30 years with slightly more impressive records, which brings us nicely onto fighters who could possibly have made the list. Most British fans will agree that there was one particular name who almost certainly should have been on DAZN's list, and that is one Joe Calzaghe. The superb Welsh fighter went through his entire career unbeaten with a perfect 46-0 record, including 32 knockouts. He will be best remembered for his one-sided beatdown of heavy favorite Jeff Lacey back in 2006, easily beating the American with one hand. He had broken the other early in the fight. One of the most technical fighters of his era, Calzaghe would go on to defeat Sakio Bika, Mikael Kessler, Bernard Hopkins, and Roy Jones Jr., with many people suggesting he was the underdog every time. He wasn't. Other fighters over the past 30 years who don't have the name recognition of the other guys on this list, but certainly have the same, if not better, skills, and might be a little put out and not being recognized, included people like Andre Ward, who retired unbeaten with world titles in 2 different weight classes. And then there are other undefeated champions such as Dmitry Pirog, who had to retire through injury, Edwin Valero, who committed suicide after being suspected of killing his wife and who also won all 27 fights via knockout, and Germany's Sven Ottke, who retired with a perfect 34-0 record. Who else do you think might have made the list? Talking about boxing greats, we have some sad news up next. Stay tuned. One of boxing's hardest ever punchers has sadly passed away. Late last week, Ernie Shavers, who came up against Muhammad Ali, losing in a 15-round decision during his career, died after a short illness at his daughter's home. Thankfully, he was surrounded by family. Shavers shot to fame in the 70s with a reputation as one of the hardest punchers in the sport. James Tillis, who he fought in 1982, recently claimed that he made Mike Tyson look like a little girl when it came to punching punching power, which should give you a decent idea of the force he was actually capable of. The big Alabama man took part in 89 professional fights during his career, winning 75, losing 14, and drawing 1. After his fight with Ali, the greatest claimed that Ernie hit me so hard it shook my kinfolk in Africa. He would also go on to fight Larry Holmes in another heavyweight title fight in 1979, which Holmes won via 11th round KO after himself being knocked down in the 7th by Shavers. Again, after the fight, Holmes commented on the raw power of Shavers, saying the punch which dropped him in the 7th was the hardest he had ever been hit with. Incredible. Arguably his greatest ever win was against Ken Norton, as he knocked out the former champion in the very first round. What do you guys make of the sad news surrounding Ernie Shavers? Let us know below. Next up, Tyson Fury has been discussing the real reason behind him vacating the ring title. The Gypsy King, Tyson Fury, gave up the ring heavyweight title in order to be in a position where he could possibly win it for a third time and match a long-standing Muhammad Ali record. Fury still holds the WBC title he won by beating Vladimir Klitschko 7 years ago, but has since given up the WBA, IBF, and WBO world titles. After his first title run, Tyson suffered from mental health issues and alcohol and drug problems, announcing his retirement shortly after. However, he made his sensational comeback in 2018, storming to the top of the heavyweight division, smashing through all corners in the process after essentially starting from scratch. Speaking recently, Tyson admitted to giving up his ring heavyweight title belt so he could equal the great Ali's record. He said, "I gave that belt up so that they could fight for it. Do you know why? Because I'm going to become a 3-time heavyweight Ring Magazine champion of the world." He then went on to suggest he was supremely confident he could beat Alexander Usyk, who literally looks unbeatable right now. If he was to beat Usyk, he would not only unify the heavyweight division for the first time in more than 2 decades, he would equal a record set by many people's greatest boxer of all time, Muhammad Ali. Do you guys think Tyson can beat Usyk? And finally, Alexander Usyk has spoken out about that post-fight rant by Anthony Joshua. Directly after Alexander Usyk defeated Anthony Joshua recently, the Englishman jumped on the mic and delivered a rant for the ages. And Alexander Usyk has finally broken his silence on the situation, suggesting that Joshua was overwhelmed by the situation. Joshua went on a strange rant about being disrespected by fans in the build-up to the fight, before throwing 2 belts out of the ring. However, Usyk has claimed that Joshua's behavior was simply a result of him being emotional, stopping short of calling him out for it. He said, "I cannot say his behavior was a disgrace. It was just emotional. I don't think he wanted to offend me." Of course, Joshua quickly apologized for his behavior, but Usyk also seemed to side with the former Olympian, saying, "I think he was just overwhelmed. It was too much to take," and he just started ranting. The Ukrainian then went on to say he doesn't hold any ill will towards Joshua, before encouraging people not to hold the rant against him either, after putting it down to emotions, which he then said took over him. Usyk said, "Don't judge him for that. Instead, he needs support and reassurance." What a refreshing stance. Good on you, Alexander. As always, thanks for dropping in on us today, and remember to tune in again next time for some more fun reveals. And why not do us a big favor by liking and sharing today's video, while also subscribing to our channel so not to miss out on more great videos in the future. Bye guys.